I'm the middle child of 3 siblings. I have 2 brothers. Both of them grew up being part of the Scouts. My older brother, Scott, worked really hard and eventually reached the rank of Eagle Scout. My younger brother joined Boy Scouts too, but after some time he decided to quit. For some reason though, my parents never pushed me to become a scout when I was a kid. Looking back, it still feels strange, because whenever my mom took me along to the Pinewood Derby races and the celebrations, I remember feeling extremely jealous of my older brother Scott. I would stand there watching everything, wishing I could be part of it too. But the thing I envied the most, the thing that stayed stuck in my mind, were the campouts. Those weekends when the troop would leave the city and head deep into the wilderness to camp for the entire weekend. The idea of sleeping outside, sitting around a fire, and staying in tents felt like the most exciting thing ever to me. A couple of times, I even went along just for the drive. I watched them unload their gear, set up their tents, and start building campfires. But since I was younger and not actually part of the troop, I wasn't allowed to stay. I had to leave with my parents and go back home while they stayed out there in the woods. Most of my jealousy was towards Scott because I watched him get ready for these camping trips all the time while we were growing up. Before every trip, the troop would give him a tent to take home so he could practice setting it up in our backyard. At that time, I was only around 7 or 8, but I still remember clearly how excited I felt when I suddenly came up with an idea. What if we did our own little camping trip? Right in the backyard? The plan was simple. We would set up the tent outside and sleep in it for the night. To my young mind, that idea felt like the greatest adventure ever. Our backyard also wasn't like a normal backyard. Our childhood home was in a very large neighborhood where the yards kind of blended together. There weren't many fences separating the houses. Instead, there were big patches of trees and thick bushes between properties. That actually made it feel even more like we were camping in the woods. On top of that, our backyard was huge. We even had a fire pit back there. Our parents decided to play along with our little idea. They helped us set up the fire pit so we could have the full camping experience. My little brother came outside with us too. He sat there roasting marshmallows just like we were, but our parents made it clear that he wasn't sleeping in the tent with us. He was only 4 years old at the time, and they didn't think that was a good idea. And of course, he wasn't a scout yet either. He was 4. After it started getting late, our parents took him back inside the house. Before leaving, they told Scott and me that it was time for us to get ready to sleep. Around that time, the Game Boy SP was the most popular handheld console. Everyone had one. So after climbing into our sleeping bags, Scott and I pulled out our Game Boys and started playing our games. I remember I was playing Super Mario Bros. 2. I was completely obsessed with that game as a kid, even though I could never actually finish it. After a while though, I started getting really tired. I rolled onto my side inside the sleeping bag and tried to fall asleep, but I couldn't. I felt exhausted, but at the same time restless. Maybe it was because I had never slept in a sleeping bag before, and honestly, it wasn't comfortable at all. A long time passed. And when I say a long time, I mean a lot of time. Eventually, I must have drifted off to sleep. Then suddenly, I woke up. For a moment, I felt completely confused. I didn't even recognize where I was. Everything around me looked unfamiliar. Slowly, I started looking around the dark tent, trying to understand my surroundings, and that's when I noticed something that instantly made my stomach drop. Scott was gone. His sleeping bag was empty. The zipper of the tent was still fully closed though. My first thought was that Scott probably went back inside the house because he couldn't fall asleep. But suddenly, I felt too scared to stay inside the tent alone. So I slowly sat up and carefully unzipped the tent. Before crawling out, I leaned forward and took a small, nervous peek outside. I didn't want to run across the backyard without checking first. I just wanted to make sure everything was clear. But it wasn't. In the darkness, I saw someone sitting on a chair next to the fire pit. It wasn't Scott. It was a grown man. He was sitting there quietly, facing directly toward the tent, which meant he almost certainly saw me when I peeked out. The moment I realized that, I gasped. I quickly zipped the tent shut again and rushed back into my sleeping bag like that thin piece of fabric could somehow protect me. I stayed completely still inside the sleeping bag. The tent was nearly pitch black. The only light inside was a faint gray glow from the moon shining through the thin fabric. At that moment, my mind was racing. Part of me wanted to call out Dad, hoping maybe it was him sitting outside. But deep down, I already knew it wasn't. I had seen the man, even if it was only for a second. If it had been my dad, he would have said something the moment I poked my head out of the tent. Then I suddenly heard the chair near the fire pit move slightly. The sound made my whole body tense up. I was absolutely terrified, silently praying the man wouldn't stand up. And if he did, that he wouldn't walk toward the tent. But then I noticed something even worse. A shadow appeared on the outside wall of the tent. It blocked part of the moonlight coming through the fabric. He was standing right outside. For some reason, a thought crossed my mind. Maybe if I stayed completely still, he might think the tent was empty. Then I heard it. The zipper. It was moving very slowly, sliding downward. Only a few inches at first. The opening was small, but it was enough. I couldn't stop myself. I slowly turned my head just a little to look. Most tents have a tiny gap at the bottom where the zipper doesn't fully seal. I had never noticed it before that night. But this time, I saw it clearly. There was an eye pressed against that small gap, just one eye, staring directly at me through the darkness. I could even see the white of it. At first, I couldn't scream. My body felt completely frozen. For a few seconds, I was totally paralyzed with fear. Then the eye suddenly squinted like the person outside was smiling. A smile I couldn't see, but somehow I could still feel. The zipper moved another inch. And that's when I finally screamed. I scrambled backward, kicking my way out of the sleeping bag and crashing into the tent poles. The whole tent started shaking as I panicked. At that exact moment, I heard footsteps sprinting away across the yard. Then the back porch light suddenly switched on. I could see the bright glow through the thin fabric of the tent. And right after that, my dad burst out the back door, shouting loudly. I could hear my dad running fast across the grass in the backyard. By the time he reached the fire pit, whoever that man was had already disappeared into the darkness. Of course, my parents immediately called the police. I honestly don't remember every detail that happened after the officers arrived. I just remember going into my parents' bedroom with my mom while my dad spoke to the police. The officers probably searched around the nearby yards and streets, trying to find whoever had been there. For me, though, the whole thing felt like a complete nightmare. That night, I didn't sleep in the tent again. I slept in my parents' bed because I was still shaking and terrified. For a long time after that, the fear stayed with me. It left a deep emotional scar. Eventually, life slowly started to feel normal again. I think it had been a few weeks to about a month after the backyard incident when something happened that made the entire experience even more disturbing. This is the moment that truly locked the memory into my mind forever. At that time, I went to a Catholic school. During lunch break, we were allowed to go outside for a short recess. The schoolyard was mostly concrete, and at the far end there was a tall fence that separated the yard from the street outside. That day we were playing some kind of running game. It might have been red light, green light, but honestly I can't remember the exact game anymore. The only thing I clearly remember is that I had to run and touch the fence to be considered safe from whoever was in the game. So I ran all the way to the fence and grabbed onto it. There were other kids standing there too, and then suddenly a man spoke from the other side of the fence. He simply said, "Hey." I turned toward the voice. A man was standing there on the sidewalk outside the fence. He asked me if I could give him directions to some place. I don't even remember where he said he was trying to go. I told him I didn't know. We weren't even supposed to talk to strangers outside the schoolyard. Then the man said something that made my entire body freeze. He said, "Your name's Chris, right?" That exact moment is burned into my memory forever. His voice, the way his face looked, and the feeling of my heart suddenly dropping into my stomach. I quickly said no, even though that was a lie. The man smiled at me and then said something even worse. He said, "You don't remember me, do you?" The second he said that, I turned and ran as fast as I could toward one of the recess supervisors. I pointed back toward the fence to show her the man, but when she looked, he was already gone. One of the kids standing next to me said he saw the man too. The recess supervisors ended the recess early right after that. Everyone was told to go back inside. Then the school contacted my parents. In my mind, I was absolutely sure it was the same man from my backyard that night. My parents came to get me, and I was taken home early that day. I remember how worried and sick they looked after hearing what happened. That whole month felt like something out of a nightmare. We actually lived in a very nice and quiet neighborhood, but after those incidents, it felt like we were almost being pushed out of the area by fear. For months after that, my parents kept a very close eye on me. I was rarely left alone anywhere. Eventually, though, life slowly returned to normal again. But even now, I still feel a heavy pain in my chest when I think about that time. Because the truth is, if that man had somehow managed to take me that night in the backyard, I might not be alive today. And the thought that makes me feel even worse is wondering whether he ever succeeded with someone else.